Harvey, I guess no surprises really, given the amount of strikes that we get into this country, and also the vitriol that we hear very often spewed from business and from the unions across, talking across each other without never really seeming able to understand each other.
Godfrey, you are quite accurate in your observation. This is not a first for South Africa, the ranking that you have referred to. I would just like to explain to the listeners and provide some context how this ranking came about. South African executives, a large number of them were asked to rate the employment relationship or the relationship between employers and employees in their respective organizations on a 7-point scale, ranging from 1 being adversarial to 7 being cooperative. And the average score was 3.1. Which resulted in this ranking of 137 out of 137 countries that participated. And this has been the pattern for the last 4 to 5 years. So it's not new. There's quite a number of debates going around discussing the matter, but unfortunately we see a lot of, or a lack of action in terms of what must we do to improve it? What is really not only causing it, but what could be possible suggestions in terms of how to improve the employment relationship.
Yeah. Harvey, if I can perhaps just point out that, we are talking about this 24 years into the dawn of democracy, and this has been a time in which we have had a government that is more friendly to workers, if you like. We have also now have had a president who has been in the unions and therefore knows the union place, and now has got into the business and he also knows the other side. And yet we do not seem to be improving. What will it take to close that gap?
The first comment that I would like to make, Godfrey, is that remember in 1994 we started with a process of democratizing South African society. Unfortunately, I do not believe we have been successful in democratizing South African workplaces. Employees to a large degree are still excluded from decision-making processes in organizations. The input is not asked for or required, and management still make all the decisions based on their own input. If you ask me how we can improve the situation, I think it's going to be a long-term process. It's not going to be easy, but it is achievable. For example, I think we can dramatically improve the quality of communication in our organizations by being more transparent and by sharing more information about what is going on in our organizations. I think we must take a very, very close look at our abilities or skill or capacity on are we equipped to deal with our differences? Do we have the necessary skills to deal with conflict? Also, in addition, in terms of our daily interaction, more respect and fairness towards each other, and a collaborative mindset where at least we try to understand each other's concerns and interests, and in an effort to find common ground.
Harvey, can I play the devil's advocate here and ask, is this a race issue? For instance, if we replaced the white leadership that we see in most companies with black leadership, would those relations be better?
I don't think so, and the reason why I'm saying that is simply based on my experience over many years in this field as a practicing employment relations expert. Because the issue is trust. I do not believe the low levels of trust is as a result of predominantly white managers and predominantly non-white employees. That has not come up in our research, because trust is a behavioral issue. The reason why the parties do not trust each other is based on their respective behaviors and not necessarily the color of their skin, to put it as blandly as that.
Absolutely, and that's what I wanted us to do. And so can I go further then and say, it sounds like this is a culture of management that has been cultivated in South Africa that therefore needs to change. And it sounds like we should be pointing the finger at management rather than more at the unions and employees.
Godfrey, I don't like to apportion blame. I have to recognize that in many South African companies, the management style is very autocratic, top-down approach. There is no input from the lower levels of employees, which, by the way, is exactly the opposite that you would find in the trade union movement. You might be familiar with the saying that for the people, by the people, which is a reflection of the nature of decision-making processes in organizations, taking into account that trade unions are representatives of employees, and therefore the bulk of trade unions is made up of employees. You can understand where the tension then comes from around decision-making in organizations. Yes, I will strongly support pleas for a management style that is more inclusive, meaning that we invite different viewpoints with the purpose of enhancing the quality of the final decision that will be made by management.